Well, hello, and welcome to today's podcast. Amber, how you doing?
I'm good, Martin. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous today. Thanks so much.
Good. What are we going to talk about today?
So today, I wanted to bring up the PMBOK.
Whoa.
So for me, I first encountered the PMBOK, I want to say about 12 years ago, this being 2025. And when I first did, I remember thinking, wow, that's a pretty daunting body of knowledge even then. And now I know we've gone from that edition to several more
Yep.
editions.
hmm
And I kind of look at it as a daunting piece because it's grown and encapsulated so much more.
Yes.
I think there are still pieces it's growing into because as far as I understand, a new one is on its way.
Mm.
And yeah, what it's like when you're looking at it for the first time. Because if it was daunting to me 12 years ago, I'm sure someone coming up today and going, I gotta learn what?
Yeah. I mean, it really depends on how you interact with it. So, first of all, just for clarification, PMBOK stands for Project Management Body of Knowledge, which is contained in, or it was 12 years ago anyway, it was a book, it was a resource book. This book was written as a collaborative effort with a bunch of project professionals initially in the 1960s. And they got together and they started to talk to each other about commonalities they experienced in their work. And as they were doing more project driven work, recognizing that there were different approaches to the way that they manage projects. And they got together, literally, the story goes, in one of the women's dining rooms of their home with a bunch of other professionals. And there were a couple of women, a couple of men, and they all literally got together and they just started like writing stuff down on flip charts and note taking. And they formed this collaboration into essentially a published work on what do we know about how to manage projects and what sort of lessons have we learned and are continuing to learn. And can we formalize it? So that's where it started in the 60s. Fast forward to today, and we are firmly rooted in the 7th edition of the project management body of knowledge, but we are right on the verge of the 8th edition. The reason I say that is because PMI, which is the Project Management Institute, which is the not-for-profit global organization that hosts the work and essentially is the institute that was founded in the 60s. This is the same group or body. This not-for-profit organization has just put out a call for professionals and members of PMI to contribute to the finalization of the 8th version. So we're probably another year out, maybe, from it going live. And basically what happens with these iterations is they are just cumulative works. You know, the work of the PMBOK, the body of knowledge, never stops. It's always working. And I think eventually, after a couple of years, it just tips where, oh, we got to do another update. And so that's how it's determined. So somebody asked me recently, like, how do they know when to write the next one? And I'm like, well, they never stop writing the body of knowledge. But what has happened to it in the most recent string of years has happened to everywhere on the planet right now. And that is the advancement of technology has sped up. So the 8th edition of the body of knowledge is more than likely going to come faster, and it will establish the body of knowledge for the first time as a non-book. So the 7th edition was a book in part. So we got a nice book that sort of looked like the last couple of books we'd had, but it wasn't as thick. And you're like, wow, did we simplify? Nope. We just took most of it online in a cloud-based environment where we could have massive amounts of research and data attached to it so that the deep dive could be, almost unending in looking for philosophies and approaches and artifacts and tools and techniques. But the other thing that's happened since PMBOK 7 is PMI has established themselves as a world leader in artificial intelligence in the profession of project management. What they have done is they've created their own proprietary, essentially, LLM. So like a language learning model that is specifically on the knowledge of project management. It is an internal ChatGPT, essentially. Internal to who? Not to PMI and its staff, internal to the membership of PMI and the professionals certified within PMI's umbrella, which is the PMP, the CAPM, all of the other certifications. And so, because PMI holds the sort of profession of project management, because they have a code of ethics, a body of knowledge, and a measuring tool, which is certification exams, they have to that added this AI, which basically knows every single bit of research data from the 60s to today. And because its model has been trained only on the PMBOK and the research that goes with the profession of project management, it has created the most robust tool that anyone that's a member of PMI has access to. So instead of me as a project management professional taking down a very large book off my shelf to flip through the pages to see, well, where might I go in this moment in this project? I simply go to my laptop or my cell phone, whatever tool I'm using to access the internet, and I log into my PMI account and I go into the AI and I type my sentence. Here's my question. What's the answer? And within, 15, 20, 30 seconds, depending on what, I get all the goods. And I get the goods customized to the body of knowledge in all of its iterations. So it includes where we are today, but it doesn't exclude where we were in the 60s. So the power of that technology really has changed the way our body of knowledge is evolving. And popular misconception about the body of knowledge is that it's an ivory tower and there's a group of men somewhere that are deciding what goes into it. And that isn't the case. In fact, arguably, it's never been the case because it has always been an ongoing lessons learned document. It is always iterated, and it is always iterated with thousands of professional contributors who donated their time for free to share their wise practice in their own project experience, to iterate the tools and to talk about what do we find works most effectively in the situations that we see in projects around the world. So, I mean, that's a long spiel on the PMBOK. And probably from my spiel, you can also hear that I'm pretty dedicated to it in that it's been a lifeline, I think, I know for our profession. But because of PMI's response to kind of the global onslaught of technology and its ability to keep up with the times, I think what we see is our profession is moving at an incredibly fast pace with all the tools and the knowledge and the experience from more than 50 years of project management. And we still to this day have thousands of professionals worldwide that donate, like volunteer. Nobody gets paid to contribute to us remaining at the top of our game in the profession. That speaks to community. That speaks to camaraderie. That speaks to an international collaboration that is interested in supporting one another in the work that they do. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm just always fired up about that. So there's a lot that's missing, yes, probably from the PMBOK, but I think what's missing is your, maybe not you specifically, Martin, but your participation. And when people say, well, they don't have this in there, then I'm like, well, where were you? Where were you volunteer your time to tell us those things? Because, oftentimes when people want to complain about something or say, well, it doesn't have this. Okay, why doesn't it? Because your voice wasn't there. So I always encourage people if we actively, as project managers, think that there are holes or gaps, then in order to close the holes and the gaps, we need to be willing to show up and to do that. And I think it's a beautiful thing to be unpaid to do it. Because I think, when you don't have fear as the motivator, what motivates us then is probably to think differently about what's going to get included. If the motivation is just to do better, we will. If the motivation is to get paid, sometimes that doesn't bring about the best work. So for me, I'm pretty pro PMBOK. And my introduction to it wasn't unlike yours. I saw it about 12 years ago and went, oh, wow, hot damn. Like, where's this been all my life? And then shortly followed up by, where the heck has this been all my life, with anger and frustration, because it was a tool that when I found it in my career, it certainly could have helped me before I found it. But, I didn't know what I didn't know.
So I love that response. Where have you been all my life? I had a similar response, which was, wow, this is really good. But I also had a bit of a visceral response,
Yeah.
which was much like Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. This is a tome, and I don't know where to start. It's like, this is a giant book of magic. And I like, what spell do I start? Like, where do I even, because, and again, I was going into it from a coach approach, learning project management, thinking, wow, this could really be useful, but it's big. So if you're young and you're new and you're looking at this thing, which isn't even physical anymore.
Right.
Like, it was a big book even back then. And I'm like, I got to learn what, when, and have what ready for because again, PMBOKs lead to exams.
Yes, certifications.
And certifications. And that can feel a little daunting. So maybe a little bit about what we could do to help the person who sees the daunting and goes, oh no, I got to eat this elephant.
Yeah, one bite at a time is my advice on eating an elephant. And I think, let me also just state, I mean, I'm pretty pro PMBOK, but I also teach in project management. And as an instructor and facilitator in project management, my role, I really understand, has been as translator. To take the language of PMBOK, to take the vernacular of project management, and to translate that into what makes it simple to understand. And I think, obviously, my unique point of view probably has oversimplified a bunch of areas that to many project professionals is far more complex than I teach. But I'm also thinking in terms of, I want it to be accessible. And I think as professionals, we don't have enough conversations about accessibility because we like to club up. I'm in this club and I speak this language and you don't. Oh, well. It exists in project management too. The idea that you have to have these certain letters, you have to have written an exam in order for you to actually be a legitimate professional in projects. That's not true. And I say that as a global volunteer with PMI that has a healthy respect for the system of project management worldwide. And also, I'm gratefully indebted to the membership of PMI. But I also think we can get over ourselves sometimes, because I believe if you are human and you are breathing, you are a project manager. I think to project manage is to be human. To write a grocery list so you don't overspend when you're at the store is to project manage a shop at the grocery store. To make a plan. This is the amount of money I have. These are the countries I'd like to go and visit. These are the amount of days I can take off work. These are the people I want to travel with. And then to orchestrate a plan, to find research, and then purchase a trip, to then go on the trip, to have a good time and come home. This is project work. And humans do this kind of stuff all the time, albeit privileged humans. So I think, what I would always want is for the PMBOK to be seen as a resource for a profession that captures as much as we can possibly capture to legitimize and to give credit to the work. But it should not be a barrier to actually understanding how to manage projects.
So I really love what you said there about the notion that PMBOK can bring us together.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked what you also had there, which is it doesn't have to be the thing that brings us together.
Correct.
So I guess a curious question I have, if I'm looking at, if it's I'm hearing this podcast for the first time.
Yeah.
Someone just sent it to me. And they're like, oh, I really like this project management idea. I think I'd like to go down that road.
Yeah.
Would you recommend certification and education first? Or would you recommend join your local chapter and play the game? I'm curious what your answer.
Oh gosh, these are really good questions to ask me because this is my world. This is where I live. Okay, I will only tell you what I did. I was at a very low point in my career about 12 years ago, and I was confused about who I was. And I found project management in the PMBOK guide. And in the midst of finding it, I found it as a way for me to reverse engineer a good portion of my professional experience, because I realized I had been project managing, but I didn't know it was a profession. So 12 years ago, I chose a journey. Now, I chose education first, but that was because I was also working full time and I had children at home and I was trying to multitask and also glimpse this profession that could be mine one day. So for me, education on a side kind of hustle style was the only way it was accessible to me. I couldn't quit everything and go back to school. And, I just didn't have the luxury. Um, and then in the midst of doing that, I also felt like I wanted connection and I wanted to meet people who did project manage, just to be clear if I really was one of them. So I joined the local chapter. And I live in a place where the professional kind of project management world is quite robust. And so I joined the chapter and I met professional project managers and I went, oh, these actually are my people. So for me, I did kind of both education first out of necessity to side hustle it. And then I joined to build connection because I was like suspicious. Am I really a project manager? I need to meet these people. And then I did. And I went, oh, yeah, these are my people. So for someone today who's going, I think maybe, project management, I would say first and foremost, either track will get you there. But I think you have to ask yourself, what will your life well support? And if you feel lonely in your decision to pursue project management as a career, then I would say join your local chapter immediately because you will lose the loneliness, because you will find people that you can chat with. And these are all people that are just like you, perhaps just a little bit further down in their journey. And you'll have the opportunity to meet and build rapport and relationship with people that can help you glimpse what that profession could be. But I think, education is important. It's just at what goes first, the chicken or the egg. I think either can be right. For me, it was in that order. And, obviously I am an educator and I do teach project management, so I'm a bit biased, but I think I don't teach project management to create professionals filled with ideology. I share project management teaching and knowledge so that anyone at any stage of their career in life can show up better and do great work, understand themselves, understand how to collaborate with others. I teach a version of project management, which is far more how to succeed at life and use project management tools to help. And that very much fits within the PMBOK guide, but it isn't exclusive to the PMBOK guide. Um, and lastly, I would just say, if you are a professional considering project management, first and foremost, you are incredibly wise to do so, because what we know now in 2025 is that project management is the fastest growing and the largest profession worldwide. And what we see as a necessity to sustain global initiatives and global work between now and the end of 2027 is to the tune of like over 30 million new PMs are required. And that's just in the next 2 years. We're not even talking about 2030 and onwards. So, when I was a kid, I'd never heard of a project manager. When I was in university, there were no project management courses. Today, you can get your PhD in project management. And so this profession is emerging and has been continually growing, and it is going to outgrow many other professions because project managers can operate as chameleons in different industries with the same kind of value techniques. And that's huge because what it means is you don't place yourself in one place for the rest of your career. When Forbes is telling us that on average, people entering the workforce today will have 14 different careers. That's what they're saying the average will be. Then being a project manager means you could maybe choose one career, project management, but you could work in 14 different industries, sectors. You could ebb, you could flow, you could have different specializations, but under one sort of main body of knowledge. And I think, this is the power of project management. Aligning yourself with PMI, becoming a member of PMI, man, the value you get just alone, if you were a member of PMI, you get this AI technology. It is at your fingertips. That alone is incredibly powerful for the relatively small amount of investment that you make on an annual basis to be a member. The professional development opportunities are huge. The camaraderie, the networking, there's just a lot of opportunity in this space. And yes, I'm biased, but I share my bias and I also share what I know to be true of that bias. And these are just truths about where the world is going.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So, with a couple minutes left, I just have sort of a more of a fun question. As with any big amount of information, we all come to it personally.
Mhm.
Have you got any personal stories about either yourself with with the PMBOK, or a student or someone else coming up that might be humorous or anecdotal as we move towards the end?
Yeah. So when I found the PMBOK, it was in version 5. And in version 5, there was this page in the book that essentially gave you the full scope of the body of knowledge, which was the knowledge areas on one axis, the processes on another the process groups on another axis, and then all of the unique processes. And I know I'm using terms from the PMBOK. What these mean are basically these are the stages or the steps of managing project work. Um, Now, in the 7th edition, which is what we're in now, they did away with that page. Now, they didn't do away with the page for good in the body of knowledge. They just didn't put it in the book. Why? Because we're moving on, we're iterating, we're thinking differently. But there was something in me that just loved it all on one page, to the point that I called it, and still to this day, I call it the safety net. And it is 10 knowledge areas, 5 process groups, and 49 processes that all fit together to create what I, like I said, call the safety net. And that is at any point in my project management journey, when I come up against something and go, what should I do next? I don't toil for very long. I just look to the safety net. And, the interesting thing about the safety net too is the way it's built and the way it was always built. It's not a list of things to do in an order. No, all of these things inform one another. So, you write your project charter pretty early on. Yes, but the project charter becomes an informant to all this other work that you do. So when you're planning for procurement later on, you're still being informed by the charter. So they all work together. But many times I find myself just sort of stuck, like, okay, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. What's next? And I look to the safety net, which, like I said, it doesn't exist as a one pager in a book anymore, but this is invaluable. And the anecdote that I share with that is I still teach it. I still teach the safety net. I teach this overarching framework and these processes, these steps, these stages, not because you do them all in every project, but because when you see and know them all and have an awareness of them all, you can pick out which ones are going to be most important to you. And, what I love about the processes as well is they're basically written like recipes where, oh, this is the process. How do we approach it? Well, these are the things that we need. This is the work we're going to do. And at the end, this is what we're going to get. I love it. It's like a grocery list of ingredients, instructions or directions on how to make it, with the end result being what we produce. And so for me, the methodical kind ofness of that, the step by step, I like that. So even though, like I said, we don't talk about it so much that way anymore, that I love the safety net.
I love your conversation on safety net. I guess maybe as we're winding down, I just sort of have a curious question, because you just mentioned this is the first edition that won't be
Yes,
physical,
a book.
a book. Is it available? Where do I find it? How do I access it? Because you mentioned we started with technologies, right?
Yes.
Technologies is changing the
Yes.
world.
Yeah.
Um, where do I interact with this technology?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, first of all, the version 8 is not out yet. Version 7 is, though. And so when you become a member of PMI, you get your own version. Your membership comes with your own licensed version that gives you a PDF version of what essentially is the book, as well as online access to the entire kind of repertoire of research and data, as well as access to this AI model. That really is the way it's going to be. I can't I can't know fully how they will move into the future with the 8th edition, but I'm suspicious that it will be like that. That how you will interact with it is you will become a member of PMI, you will pay that annual fee, and that fee includes access to all of that. It's a wise subscription model because I have to say, if you buy a PMBOK guide off of Amazon, which is fine, go ahead, do it, no problem. That is a dusty research book. And it's not dusty maybe when you buy it, but it can get dusty pretty quick because it sits on a shelf, not necessarily fully accessible, and perhaps can feel a little bit intimidating. A future body of knowledge that lives and breathes, that is digital, and that allows you as a learner to navigate and connect and collaborate with others in understanding it, that is far more valuable. So I actually think that subscription model is going to be a really good way to engage with it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as someone who probably has a dusty version 4, I want to say it's 4.
It's probably 4. Yeah.
I have a 4 because I had an old, I didn't buy it new. I bought the old one.
Yeah, of
But
course.
even that one now, almost 4 editions later,
Yeah.
feels like grandpa
Yeah. Yeah.
compared to this interactive technology.
Absolutely. And you know what? What's I'm very excited about is look at how far we've come. I want to be associated with a professional organization that continues to do the work of iterating, of staying on top of and staying ahead of. We as an organization at PMI, we are agile. We have proven it. That doesn't mean we get everything perfectly right all the time because it's not perfection is elusive. It's that we are doing the work every day in the journey and it's collaborative and it's voluntary. The entire organization of PMI exists with volunteers at the helm, not with staff at the helm. The staff are there to support the work, but the work is led by those of us who are dedicated to our profession.
Well, thank you for leading that work. Thank you for being part of the journey. And thank you for being part of whatever is going to become edition 8. Because
Yes.
I'm sure some of you is in there.
I'm sure I'm in there somewhere. You're right.
All right. Thank you so much for today.
Thanks, Martin.
Have a great night.